What is up? I think we are live.
Woohoo!
So should be
Finally.
live now. Finally. Had some technical difficulties and we still might have technical difficulties. So we're gonna see how this goes. This is Farley Power Podcast number 2, and it is work in progress, obviously,
Yep.
because we were supposed to be on at 7 o'clock and it's almost 7:40. So
Well,
anyway.
every time, every
What's up,
week, I
Brian?
think it'll get a little bit better. Hey, good. Nothing much.
Yeah. How's getting ready for next week's video? How far are you along in the game?
I actually haven't gotten too much further than where I was last week,
Okay,
because
let me
of
catch
other
up
games
a
that I've been
little bit.
playing. Yeah, but
Yeah, I do. I
I,
know.
uh,
I
I'm about
know.
halfway, and it
See,
only took me.
that's why this is. I was just gonna say that's why this is good because this like forces us to get through. We have a commitment to make up to, so we can't
Yeah,
just be like, nah, we have to play different games because that's my issue. I'll have a different game I want to play the next day, and I mean, just picked up Roller Coaster Tycoon on the phone, and now
yeah,
like last night, that's all I wanted to do. So,
yeah.
yeah.
Well,
Okay.
I was thinking about it because for me, I went about halfway through the game through Banjo Kazooie.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, well, I got time to finish it, and so and it only took me like 3 days really to get halfway. So this next week I'll just breeze through it probably.
Yeah. Well, I since we're this next basically kickstarting into that game. This is kind of our in between week, so our in between podcasts are going to be us talking about news and events, things that went on. So we wanted to dive into one of the games distracting us, I guess, from our commitment to retro gaming. But that's Hollow Knight, as you can probably tell from the title. That's what we wanted to dive into a little bit. I've had this game for I don't know. Do you remember when haven't I told you about it before, Brian? Like I told you a long time ago about it.
Yeah, you told me a long time ago about it. I think before all the
Like probably
updates were
like at
actually
least
out.
6 months ago.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's just
because I
you never
remember.
played it.
Yeah, well, I remember hearing about the updates. And I was like, oh yeah, cool, that sounds good. And I would just play like occasionally for half an hour. Like some nights, I just pick it up and play it because I really liked it. But I just had like this is me now. I feel like I've been a little bit better about just focusing on one game at a time, or at least not like 10 games at a time. So
Yeah,
I think that's what was happening, and where I was like, oh well, I want to do this, but I also want to play Red Dead Redemption, and I also want to play Black Ops with people online, and just like going to old games like Breath of the Wild or picking up anything. So I think I didn't give it the time it deserved. I know I didn't give it the time it deserved because now after this last week, Brian and I just went through and Brian, of course, beat in a week because that's classic Brian.
yep.
But I, but for me, I actually just gave it some specific set time and just really focused in on it when I could, and it's like one of my favorite games now. Like no joke,
Yeah,
legit, Brian. Like because
I love Hollow Knight now, so I agree.
yeah, I think it just has to do with it. It's so simple and hard, right? Like so
Hmm.
difficult, but at the same time, it has a simplicity to it. But then it's like way deeper than you expect.
Oh yeah.
Like you're just like,
Well,
oh, kind of interesting. Like seems like there's like you read something in a cave or something, and it brings up some text, and you're like, I don't even know what that means.
yeah. Well, like when I first picked it up, and I had no idea, first of all, that it was like bugs. Like I had no idea that was like the whole
Neither.
synopsis of the world. And so when I started, I was running around as as the knight, and I was just thinking like, well, what is this world? And all the people, all the NPCs are all like weird, like creature looking things. But then it's like go further into the game, it's like, oh, they're bugs. But then it's like there's this huge like there's all this lore behind the whole entire game that you kind of have to
Yeah,
discover as you're going through it, which was I thought it was pretty neat. But
yeah. No, I totally enjoyed it. I thought it was awesome. I think that I probably enjoy from it now is like just diving into little pieces of, or even that, like kind of theories almost,
hmm.
right? Like just like almost as much as like how I love Star Wars fan theories and kind of like ideas of like, oh well, like what happened here, and people kind of pick things apart. That's how I've gotten like so excited for Hollow Knight that way because you notice little things and you're like, oh wait, what if that connects to this, this theory or this thought. But I also do have to say, like, it's not just the kind of the underlying tones and that kind of deeper story that's hidden behind the simplistic look. It's the gameplay. Like, I just realized how addictive it is. Like, it's Metroidvania, but it's taken on its own style a little bit, I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, I think it brings it back to the times when games like retro games were really difficult, and you didn't really have like any real help on. They didn't hold your hand too much on it, and then didn't really make things any easier for you. It was just you had to get good at the game in order to progress through the game. I feel like
Right.
Hollow Knight kind of is a resurrection of that kind of gameplay.
Totally. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think, and I think it's just one of the more recent games, times we were together when we played through Super Castlevania 4 on Super Nintendo, and how it kind of brings that same level of hardness, right? Where you're kind of doing some platforming kind of stuff, and it's a side scroller, but more of a Metroid style because it kind of brings in that maze to it. You're descending and you're ascending, and you're just trying to understand, like, where the heck am I going? You open up a new area and you're like, oh my gosh, I already thought like this world was giant, and now it just adds this whole another layer into it.
Yeah.
And if I don't know if you have, Brian, and I don't know anybody else that has played the game, has listened to the history of the guys that started how they built the game out. I watched a video on it. I might have to like link in the description because it's awesome. They basically broke down their initial plans. Like, their initial plan was legit just to kind of build outlines of the world, like rough drafts, and then they would build the game to how the map was built, basically. And so they started with they just started with Forgotten Crossroads,
Yeah.
And from that point on, they just added we'll just add this little area because these characters need on space, right? And then just added on a little further. And then by the time they got to where they're at, they're like, oh my gosh, like, this is giant. This world's huge. But I love that they just went with it. They just kept going because that was my favorite part about it, was probably the exploration. Like, you just stumble into a new area and you're just like, whoa, this is like magical.
Yeah, and there's also parts where you get to an area and you realize you're like, oh, well, I can't progress any further. There has to be a way. Like, for instance, when there's the Queen Gardens area, and in order to get into that area, you have to go into the acid water and like swim underneath the acid water. And I got to that point because it connects to the fog canyon place, and I got to that area and I was like, there has to be a way that I can swim in this freaking acid water, because there's no there has to be a way to get over there. And so what I would do is I would just find different I would just look at the map and find different areas that looks like there should be a way to enter it, and be like, okay, I'm going to go to that area because I haven't been there before. And so you just have to explore every part of the map until you find that little piece that you're looking for to get past those barriers. And I don't know, I just thought it was a lot of fun doing that.
Yeah. I also think that one of my other favorite things was the dialogue. Again, it was really simplistic, but just the way you interacted with people, like, the world is so empty. Like, you go into this world and you're like traveling to each of the different kind of parts of the subterranean world, and you feel like lonely the whole time almost, right? Like, you're all by yourself. And whenever an NPC like shows up, you're like, oh, it's a friend. You kind of have this. I mean, even though it's simple, right? Their dialogue's just like murmur, murmur, like it's nothing almost, and they say a couple lines of dialogue, and then that's kind of it, and that's all you get. But there's something about it that made it really charming and fun to. You're like looking forward to the next experience when you ran into somebody else.
The thing is because they didn't just have an NPC for one purpose. They used an NPC for multiple, purposes. There was that one guy who had the mask of the teacher or whatever. The teacher mask, whatever. And in the beginning of the game, you just find him randomly in different areas, and you're just like, oh, this guy's cool. Like, he's an explorer just like my character is. But like at first it's just kind of like, is he like my rival? Is he like, gonna turn on me or something? Like, that was what I was thinking the whole entire time I was playing, and I like ran into him. I was like, oh, is it gonna be like a rival fight, moment or whatever? And then at the near the end of the game, when you end up getting to that area where he's like, oh, I felt like I was called here. I don't have any recollection, but like of before, but I feel like I was called here, and you're like, wow, like he was there in the very beginning. He had the mask on his head the entire time. I didn't even notice it.
Yeah, dude, I know.
And then it's like, wow, that's so cool that they. Yeah, because I just think that's a cool part about Hollow Knight is that they didn't just introduce an NPC just to have him there, just so that the world's a little bit less lonely. They're like, this person has a purpose, you know?
Yeah,
and I think that's cool.
And who's the old guy, the like broken down mask? Is it Zote?
Oh, the one that looks kind of like you.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, Zote.
That dude.
Yeah. And he just pops up every once in a while, like.
Yeah, and you're just like, you feel bad for him, but at the same time, it's like he just has this like totally charming character to him. Like you're just like, oh, well, like I hate you because you're just annoying, and you think you're awesome, and like I kick your trash every time until later in the game, until you have to fight the dream of him. Then he's not a joke.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that, I think that's kind of an interesting concept on its own. Like the whole dream nail thing. Like at first, I was just kind of like, oh, it's like this is kind of like an odd twist to the game, right? Like. Where you enter people's dreams. Yeah, I thought it was a weapon too. I'm like, oh, sweet, the dream nail.
This thing doesn't do jack.
Yeah, but like it opens up a whole nother world, especially like with the bosses being such like a big aspect of the game. You fight all these different bosses, and then like all of a sudden you're like, oh crap, yeah, those bosses were hard, but now I have to like fight the dream form of them. Like you have the false knight that turns into the here I have the page pulled up. 1 second. The failed champion. So the false knight is not too hard, but then his dream form is the failed champion, and then Zote was super easy, but then his dream form is Gray Prince Zote, and he's like impossible. And then like, but then there's difficult ones like you remember the broken vessel?
Yeah.
So broken vessel, you go back to him and use the dream nail on him, and he's the lost kin. And he's like, he's a lot harder, you know. Like, I don't know. I just think it was really unique how they introduced that aspect where it's like you use the dream nail to gain access to different areas, but then also to fight like a harder version of bosses that you have fought previously.
Yeah, and the other thing too is like obviously they have the DLC, so that's additional content to go back and play. But I kind of like how with like what you're saying with the dream now, how when you go back and you've already defeated this person, but you can go and fight a more challenging version of them. But like it's not necessary to do that if you want to beat the game. You don't need to do that. You don't get all the alternate endings, but to go through and beat the game and still experience it and really enjoy it, you don't have to do those things. But for people that want to challenge themselves more and put more hours into the game and get really good at being the knight and being able to use all of his assets and kind of building your own charm set, because I didn't really realize that until it started getting harder, where I was like, oh, this is how I play well. Other people can beat this person a certain way, but this is how I am able to kind of build myself. Well, it almost brought that kind of RPG side into it a little bit, because you're actually building the knight up to really relate to your kind of skill set and kind of that way. So I really enjoyed that. I thought it was really cool. But just again, you could go back to, you can have those harder boss fights if you want to go through it. But if not, you can just experience the game and be like, wow, that was a tough game, but really exciting and enjoyable. And then there's the people that are psychopaths like us, well, probably worse than us, that have to go back and just torture ourselves trying to beat these harder bosses. Yeah. Like the second Grim Troop, dude. Grim Troop round 2.
Did you beat round 1?
Yeah.
Like of him? Yeah, he was pretty hard round 1, but then round 2, I didn't even I fought him like 4 times and got destroyed like off the bat 4 times, and I was like, dude, I'm gonna wait
so
and
fast.
So that's the thing. It's
the first one was hard, but then he has he's actually fun to fight. After kind of get his thing down, you're like, dude, it's fighting Dracula, and it's like entertaining, and the music is really really cool, and that's the other dude. The music, oh my gosh, I'm jumping all over the place, but the music got me. That's actually what had me from the beginning. I was like, dude, this game is so like you just throw earphones in at night. And you're just playing it handheld or even on TV. But if you just have your earphones in and you just have it right in your hands, it's like, dude, you're in there. You're in this little world. Especially
one thing
City
that's
of Tears.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Dude,
It's
love
cool
City of
because
Tears.
they get the ambiance of each area. Like, well, first off, each area is very unique and like diverse, but like they get the ambiance just fit so like right with the music and with
Uh-huh.
like City of Tears, for instance, it's raining from the blue lake above it, right?
Right.
And then like
Yeah.
different other areas are like all dark or kind of like not foggy necessarily, but like the deep nest is like
Well, yeah,
kind of
oh yeah, the deep nest is terrifying. You're like walking around and you just hear and like little spiders in the corner. You're like, oh freak, get away from me, get away from me.
yeah.
Yeah, dude.
Even when they're not
When I
even
first
bad
went in there,
guys.
um, oh I know it scared the crap out of me though, because when I first went in there, I was it's like deep nest, and I was like nest. I don't like the way that
Yeah,
sounds.
yeah,
Yeah, like there's some parts where I like something jump out and scare me. I'd be like, what the heck, man?
yep.
But no, I think yeah, the atmosphere that they're able to portray not only with the visuals, because the visuals are unreal,
Mm-hmm.
and um and just the how smooth the character is and how he works with the environment, works with the enemies, that just with along with the music makes the just experience unreal because it just ties it all together really well. I kind of thought about it like when you're in an area and um you hear some of the enemies and it's just there's not really any music and then something will happen and you just kind of hear like a subtle tone or like a little bit of an undertone of something, and it's not a lot of music but it's just enough to where it like gives you this feeling like of either like oh mystery or kind of to be a little bit of not horror exactly but just kind of like a little bit of fear maybe when you get to
Mm-hmm.
an area. um and I think it might be the first part of the abyss or deep nest, but it's when there's those things that literally sound like Golem, like as soon as you enter the room. Do you know what I'm talking about? I don't know if you do. I'm trying to remember the exact spot on the map, but you literally get in the room and you just hear like this terrifying noise.
Oh, wait, what do the enemies look like?
Like beetles, kind of like
Oh,
man,
no. They're like mummy beetles, right?
yeah,
Yeah. So
dude,
that's
those things. The
that's like
first, this
underneath the
is literally my
cemetery.
face.
Yeah.
Yeah. Literally my face when I was playing. Oh, cool! You can go underneath the resting grounds. Go underneath the resting ground, and it's your. I'm like, nope. Just jump right back up. I was like, no, I'm not dealing with this
Dude.
crap. Because
Yeah.
any other enemies, you kind of hear like kind of weird noise, like, but that was like a gurgling, dying, like Smeagol voice. Like, heck
Yeah,
no,
dude.
dude. Smeagol's gonna be coming out of the corner and like grab my soul. It's gonna be
Well,
a
the scary part
ball.
about those enemies, the scary part about the friggin' mummy beetle thing, it's like it's down there and it's like, "Rah, rah," and then it like turns on you, like because you get too close and it like
Yeah.
jumps on you, dude. Like, uh,
I was saying
uh
is like it presents you with this really cool atmosphere, and then the other one too is when you go all the way down to the abyss to the far right, and there's
huh.
what is it, the siblings or what are they called?
Yeah, they're called the siblings.
Yeah, dude, and they're just like they're just creepy floating in the air because it's like your what is it, your essence or your not your vessel, right?
Well,
When you
you
get
have
killed and you have to go fight them.
it's your void, I think, void essence or something.
Oh, you're yeah, and so like when you have to get him, it's kind of like that, but it's like creepier because it's not yours and there's like multiple,
Yeah,
and it's just all
and that's
dark. You
what's
literally can.
what.
No, I was just saying you literally what? I was just saying you can literally like see nothing down there.
Yeah. Well, one thing that that's part of the story that's really cool. It's like you have all these, they call the siblings for a reason because it's like the Knight and even Hornet and even the Hollow Knight, they're all part of the same like created like I don't know, like race almost, they're like a race of bug that was like
Right.
created by the Pale King, right? To
Yeah.
like do his bidding and like how like the beginning of the game you don't really realize that, and when you meet Hornet you're like, oh, it's kind of a person like me, and then you're like going through the game, and then you've died so many times so you see your void essence all the time, but then like you get down where the siblings are and you're like, no, like, whoa, what is this, like this can't be
Yeah.
happening, like
And
getting
then you
ganged
and
up
then you
on.
read it says that the siblings. Wait, what? It starts
Yeah.
tripping out your mind, kind of. You're just like, wait, what the heck? Yeah, and that's what I mean. Like, we're playing the game originally when I first started playing it. I was like, yeah, it's a fun platformer. Like, it's really charming and the atmosphere is really cool. Music's awesome. Character plays really well. So, like, there were a lot of good attributes to it and things that I was like, yeah, I want to play it. I want to keep playing this. But it wasn't until I started noticing the little subtle things that I got sucked in, I guess,
Yeah.
and kind of
You kind of
invested.
underestimate the depth of the game and like
Oh,
how
big time.
yeah how real like how they thought about it so much instead of it just being like, you go in and you fight these enemies and you need to beat a final boss and that's the game. It's like there's a reason and there's lore behind all of it. And I just think that makes a game 100 times better. Like you could have a really good game,
Yeah,
really good gameplay, but like if you don't really have a good story to it, if a story is necessary, like Smash Brothers doesn't need a story, but like if you have a adventure game that all it is just an adventure and there's not really a motive to it, then it's not like
right.
as memorable, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, no, and I agree. And I think for anyone that hasn't played it, like I totally recommend it. Even people like we didn't grow up on Castlevania or really Metroid, right? Like the
No,
original
no.
games. We started with 3D platforming and 3D 3 games on the N64. That was kind of our first step into gaming. And so or 2D was on the Game Boy, right, for us.
Yeah.
So I mean, coming into these things later in life, you like gain an appreciation for them because they are hard, but it's like a challenge and a reward. Like it's totally worth it. And
Yeah.
the Metroidvania, I totally understand why it's such a cult kind of following of these Metroidvania style games, regardless if you started playing them when you were young or not. Like, because anyone that did, they love this type of game, but and we love this type of game still too. And so I think there's so many things about it that are amazing. I honestly, I was really trying to pick my brain to think of what is something I didn't like about the game. I don't know if you have something on the top of your head that you could that you can even think of. I I can't honestly. I
I really
tried
can't
to.
either.
They did everything really well. I'm sure there's little nitpicky things that I could try to come up with, but in the end, I don't know necessarily they'd make it better. It would just make the game different, and that's not
Hmm.
necessarily making it better, right? Like
Yeah.
it's all around just an amazing, almost like flawless game. And I haven't talked to you about this yet, but um, oh shoot, Dead Cells, I think is what it's called.
I looked
I don't know
into
if
that
you've
a little bit
seen.
actually.
So I actually have that physical. Someone was selling it locally, and I was like, "What the heck?" So I went and picked it up because I love to collect and I can myself. But
Hmm.
so I do want to give that one a try eventually at some point. But I also
Definitely,
have
yeah.
Final Fantasy VII on the Switch that I downloaded, so I do want to give that a
Wow.
try as well at one point. But Banjo's first, man.
Yeah.
Banjo's first,
Well,
and I'm really excited about Banjo.
let's talk about the Switch rumors really quick.
Yeah. So I'm going to share my screen really quick if I can. Oh shoot. Hopefully this is gonna
I'll
work.
just start with what I remember. Oh no, actually no, that's good. That's basically what I remember
Okay.
seeing.
Yeah. So this hopefully I kind of show you here. So this is kind of like the idea, right? Is that they would just make the Switch. Here's the regular Switch, but it would
Yeah,
be
yeah.
the Pro version would just kind of stretch the screen out right here,
Uh-huh.
and just obviously like this black space, the bezel would be kind of reduced. Um,
Okay.
and then the other thing is here's the Switch Mini idea, which is what I think a lot of people are most interested in because the Switch Pro, I think it's either going to be just a revision, and
Uh-huh.
that's basically because the chipset that they put into the Switch actually was something that Nvidia was like they just needed to get them moving. They didn't have really any set market to sell those to, so they had a ton of
Uh-huh.
them almost laying around, and so it was perfect for the Switch because it was a low cost for them. It worked for the Switch. It was going to be able to handle the games they needed to run with that video card, and but now they no longer are producing them. And so that's why those rumors kind of started in the first place. But then, like, the Wall Street
Gotcha.
Journal came out and said that was going to happen. And so now there's a lot more evidence stacking up that's saying Nintendo's going to come out probably at E3 or maybe sooner, right? There's a leaked Nintendo Direct this month that's going to be coming out this month that's like kind of been almost verified.
Huh.
So it'd be interesting what they bring. I don't know if they'll bring this in there, but
Yeah.
the concepts are cool. I think it's really cool to
Well,
um, just like especially with the Switch Mini.
Yeah, well, I just think it's just kind of interesting because you look at the Switch Mini, and sure, it's quite a bit smaller than the Wii U, but it's not too different from the Wii U, you know? Like
Right.
I'm sure it's going to be a little bit more compact and more like a 3DS feel, but like the 3DS had its own kind of following because it had the two screens, one that you you know, touched on, and then the other screen that was just kind of like just an extra screen to use to watch and to play your game. But like I don't know, I just feel like it's a interesting concept because it's only meant for portable, I would assume, right?
Yeah, but this is why I think that it's a smart idea is because the 3DS is phasing out, and ever since the Game Boy, Nintendo has always had two platforms: their consoles and their handhelds. And so,
Yeah.
and the Switch is kind of different, right? Because it's basically made that like it's two for one,
Yeah.
basically, right? And but when the Switch came out, they still had the 3DS, and there's still kind of a following. There's still people that like it, especially with Pokemon games, like a big amount of people with Pokemon and Animal Crossing. But we're getting both of those on the Switch now, and the
Yeah.
3DS is being phased out. So my thought process is basically having the Switch Mini makes a lot of sense because now that market, that 3DS market, they're like, oh, cool. I guess the 3DS is gone, so the next 3DS is the Switch Mini. You
Yeah,
know,
that would
because
make sense.
those people just it's their market is a totally portable Switch. They don't. It's which is kind of weird because that's the whole the whole
Yeah.
branding is the Switch is that you can switch back and forth between between the two. Um, but I think it's a smart move. If I didn't occasionally have people come over to play it in dock mode, I would honestly be interested in bringing this thing around because it's just smaller, and I don't really
Yeah.
mind small screens. But if they do make a bigger Switch Pro with a bigger screen and it performs well, I'm probably going to buy it.
Really? Yeah. Well, this is
Probably.
with the Switch Pro, like obviously it's not like nearly as certain as the Switch Mini would be, but talking what you're talking about the bezel and reducing it to where it would be a little bit easier to or a bigger screen.
Right.
I could also see them potentially in improving the resolution on it when you think like where it's because what is it 900p on handheld and 1080 docked right now the normal Switch.
720p handheld.
Oh, and 900 docked. So like I could see them
No,
bumping it up.
it's 10 dock.
It's 1080.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. For
I
some
don't
reason I
even know
thought
what
it was
that
like
is.
some weird like in
It's 1080
between.
docked. I mean, I think it differs on some games, but it's usually like Breath of the Wild, for example, 1080 docked and then 720 in handheld.
Yeah. Well, okay, so resolution handheld could be improved on a Pro, and then as well the storage is the initial storage when
Yeah.
you buy it right off the
What is it?
shelf.
32 gigs?
Right now,
Yeah,
I don't even know if it
something
was
like
that
that.
much.
I think.
No,
Yeah, like
yeah, it's
it's
probably
super
32.
low.
It's probably 32, and so like I could see them bumping it up to like over 100 definitely, because people just to play the game because a lot of people want to just download a game like they would do on PlayStation or something and
Right.
just play
Yeah.
it straight from there instead of having to switch out their cartridges all the time. But some
Right.
people like I enjoy having cartridges because I like the physical copy of the game better than just
Yeah.
having a downloaded version of it. But I could totally see them improving that for those people that really want only downloadable games, um,
Hmm.
just to make it easier for them instead of them having to go out and buy a hundred and something odd gigabyte SD card to go into their Switch. So
Yeah. Right. I totally agree. I think my only thought process too is like how I explained that the Nvidia card, the Terra X, whatever the heck it is. Um, I think that because that is happening where those cards are no longer being made, they're making a revision. And I don't know if it's gonna that's why I think it's not gonna be a very big revision. I think they're just
mm-hmm.
gonna put out new Switch models that are like slightly better, and then maybe they have a little bit better of a chip, but it's just like the new Nintendo Switch. They'll like brand it like the new, like they did on the new
Yeah,
3DS, because it is new, but it's basically like, oh well, we just no longer had the same product or same I guess resources or raw materials to use. So they got new raw materials that are a little bit better, and so they'll relaunch that alongside of the Switch Mini, so it makes it look like there's these two new products, right?
Yeah.
And then I just want to pull up one more idea because I found this on Reddit and I thought it was so awesome. But this would be totally a sweet idea. This is basically the Switch Mini that I showed you, but they made it so that it's a Switch Pro controller that's built in. So instead of having it like this down here, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be like a built-in version, and it's going to be a lot more comfortable on your hands.
Mm-hmm.
And I've also seen it where they've had Joy-Cons for the Switch Pro that are actually going to have this like add-on on the bottom. They look kind of weird, but it would be like a really comfortable grip, because for the most part, the Switch doesn't bother me when it's in my hand. But like if I'm really just like, even with Hollow Knight, when you're trying to make precision jumps and stuff, sometimes my hand is just like, oh my gosh, it's dying compared to the Pro controller.
Yeah. No, yeah, I think that'd be a good idea. Especially if it's only handheld and you can't dock it whatsoever. It's like, what would be the point on having a, like, I mean, I bet they could find a way to get attachments to it, but like, what would be the point to, it would just be way better and way more convenient for a lot of people just to have a nice fitting grip or a nice fitting console in their hands, you know?
Right, totally. And I think the same thing. So I think it'll be interesting to see what kind of happens with their decisions. I'm definitely, that Super Mario Maker 2 thing is on there, so I'm pretty pumped for that. Probably gonna pick.
Yeah, me too.
It's kind of a side thought that I had, but
I think a lot of people. I think a lot of people will be excited for it. Switch Mini. Yeah. But then a lot of people, I think, won't really. Oh yeah, definitely. But I think a lot of people at the same time won't really care that much because they're like, I already have the Switch. It's portable. That's good enough for me. You know, but
yeah. But I think too, if they make it more like a 3DS, kind of the handheld market, and they sell it at like $200 instead of $300, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Or maybe even cheaper. I don't know. Maybe they can sell for $180 or something if they don't put in the HD rumble, they just have a normal rumble feature.
Mm-hmm.
Because that was expensive. For the Joy-Cons are expensive. They're $80 for a pair, right? So it's a huge expense. So they cut down on that. They have a smaller screen, maybe not like a touch screen, I don't know, or maybe it's just like not as good of a screen. Mm-hmm. And it's all one piece, so it's not multiple components going together. I think you're right. That's something that for people like us, we're just like, oh, that's cool. You know, so more people can play now. It just gets more games in more people's hands. And that's the other thing. Software is going to be huge, because once all these get out to people that were on the 3DS side, like Pokemon and Animal Crossing, things like that people like love to have handheld, just take wherever. Those kind of people are going to love Stardew Valley, and they're going to love like Golf Story and love these other little games that are just fun to pick up and play. And they're either simulators or they're just, you know, kind of easier to play kid games almost. They're going to love picking up this stuff, probably even Breath of the Wild and Mario Odyssey.
Yeah, I just think it's it'd be a smart move. It'd be a smart move by Nintendo, just because it would open up the market there. It would open up a lot more people to their market. And
there's no longer it's no longer
Switch's market.
Right, and it's cool because they basically pull in their console market and their handheld market, and they kind of pulled them together with the Switch, but now they're totally, because they're like, yep, 3DS is gone. We let you guys hang on to that for a while. Now we're bringing in a smaller version of the Switch that's taking place of the 3DS, and now all the games that you can get on the Switch are what you're going to get on your new mini Switch. Like there's no other, because you can't get, like, I would love if I could get Pokemon, the one they made for the 3DS, on my Switch. I would love that, but I can't.
Yeah.
Right. But now everything's going to be on the Switch. So going forward, any Nintendo game that comes out will be only on the Switch platform, and you can get on your, you know, less powerful Switch, your Switch Mini, or your normal Switch, or Switch Pro if it comes out. Right.
Yeah.
So I think it's a cool concept. I'm really excited about it. Of course I want more information sooner than later, but I would guess that if anything, it's probably not going to have any information on it until probably closer to June, or like, you know, E3 time.
Yeah.
But you know, time will tell, I guess. Yeah. But I don't know, any other thoughts on it, or?
No, that was my last kind of thought on it. So
yeah,
we'll see. It'll be interesting.
Well, yeah, I think it'd be really cool. Well, going forward next week, hopefully thing works out. We can get this running a little bit smoother, and we're actually going to tackle a review on Banjo-Kazooie and go forward with with our retro games on the Farley Power podcast. All right, dude. Well, I will talk to you soon, and everybody else, we'll see you.